Welcome to A Guide to Every Deck in EDH. Today we are looking at Gyruda, Doom of Depths. So Gyruda is of course traditionally known for being a companion, although in this deck we are using it as a commander and not a companion. So Gyruda is a 6 mana hybrid blue and black creature. It's a 6/6, but that doesn't matter at all because its ability is the only thing we care about. And that says, when Gyruda enters the battlefield, each player puts the top 4 cards of their library into their graveyard, so everyone mills 4. You then put a creature card with an even converted mana cost, so an even mana value from among those cards onto the battlefield under your control. So ETB, everyone mills 4, and then you reanimate an even mana value creature from among the cards you milled. Not anything, just among the cards you milled, which can be your cards or your opponent's cards. So this deck is primarily going to revolve around one of two things. The first thing is a combo that specifically involves Mortuary. So Mortuary is a 4 mana black enchantment, and it says whenever any creature dies, so whenever any of your creatures dies, you can put that creature back on top of your library. So if you have a sack outlet, you can put, and Mortuary, you can put Gyruda into play, and then with the trigger on the stack, you can sack Gyruda, then Mortuary will trigger and put Gyruda back on top of your deck. Then the Gyruda ability will resolve. It'll mill Gyruda and another 3 cards off the top of your library and 4 from each opponent. And then because Gyruda is among the cards that you just milled, you can then put Gyruda back into play, triggering it again, and then again hold priority and sack it again. So Gyruda plus Mortuary plus any sack outlet will allow you to infinitely mill out all of your opponent's cards, and then you can just pass the turn and they lose the game. Or you can just mill your whole deck until you find Thoracle, but that only works if Thoracle is in the last 4 cards or if you have some other way of reanimating it, because you don't know when you're going to hit it. And then apart from that specific combo with Mortuary, you also have Gyruda plus clones. So anytime that you mill an even mana value clone into your graveyard, you can reanimate it, and then that clone can copy Gyruda, and then either the clone or Gyruda can die to the legend rule, but it'll still trigger, going another 4 cards deep, and then potentially hitting another clone and hitting Gyruda, and then, triggering the Gyruda ability again, etc., etc., etc. Now, the problem is that these 19 clones here are, as of the recording of this video, the only legal clones in EDH that have an even mana value. So there's a few others that have an odd mana value, but they obviously don't work with Gyruda's ability. So apart from those, it's just these 19 cards. And the odds of hitting any 4 or any one of these cards out of the top 4 cards of your deck is really not very good. I believe it's only about 57% to hit any one of them, which means you're very likely to brick, if not the first time, then at least by the second or third time. So relying on the ability to keep chaining clones together is just not realistic. Now, there are a little bit more of effects besides just the clones. So you also have cards like Thassa Deep Dwelling. Thassa Deep Dwelling says at the beginning of your end step, exile up to 1 other target creature you control, then return that card to the battlefield under your control. So if you hit Thassa Deep Dwelling instead of one of the clones, you can go to your end step, use Thassa to blink Gyruda, and then trigger it again and potentially keep going. But that is very, very minor. That's only basically the 20th clone essentially. So again, the odds are pretty against you. You can add a little bit to that. So you've got cards like Nightmare Shepherd that says whenever another non-token creature you control dies, you may exile it. If you do, create a token that's a copy of that creature, except it's a 1/1, and it's a nightmare in addition to its other type. So if you already have this on the battlefield when you first get the Gyruda trigger going, that means every time that you have one of these clones die to the legend rule, you can then reanimate it with Nightmare Shepherd, which will bring it back as a copy of Gyruda again to trigger once again. So you get basically double the Gyruda triggers with every clone that you hit. And it's not just Nightmare Shepherd that does that. There's also, of course, Panharmonicon and Roaming Throne, which both double the triggers. So you can get double triggers off of Gyruda. And once you're hitting 8 cards at a time rather than 4 cards at a time, then your odds go up a lot. But that still requires that you have another 3-card combo. So you need Gyruda plus one of, well, it's technically 2 cards, sort of. It's Gyruda plus Panharmonicon, Roaming Throne, or Nightmare Shepherd, and then try to chain all of these clones together. Now, another way to build the deck would be, instead of doing this clone thing, just play random valuable even mana value creatures, things like Consecrated Sphinx, Jin-Gitaxias, Villas, Broker of Blood, Razaketh, stuff like that. So you could build it that way, but this way is the clone combo version. Now, apart from all that, oh, and also Machias the Unhallowed is Undying, so it's kind of the same thing as the Nightmare Shepherd, so it basically does the same thing. And we also have Virtue of Knowledge for more trigger doubling. We also have Displacer Kitten, which means that if we do blank on one of the mills from Gyruda, any spell that we cast, any non-creature spell that we cast, can use the Displacer Kitten trigger to blink Gyruda and get the trigger again. So that is a way of restarting the chain if we brick. And then, of course, we obviously have Thassal's Oracle plus Demonic Consultation because we're in the colors, so why not? Apart from that, we have a little bit of card draw, some counter spells, more than usual because we do need to make sure that Gyruda gets through. Since the whole deck revolves around Gyruda, we do need to make sure that we can get it past our opponent's counter spells. Some fast mana as well, because the faster we can get Gyruda out, the better. Pretty stock standard lands, some ramp, and then some tutors, including Dimir Houseguard as a sack outlet for Gyruda. You could play a different sack outlet like Viscera Seer or Ashnod's Altar or something. I like Dimir Houseguard specifically because it is a even mana value creature, so we can hit it off of Gyruda. We can also transmute it into Panharmonicon or something if we don't want specifically the sack outlet effect. And additionally, among our ramp spells, we are running Heartless Summoning because we don't care about the stats of any of our creatures since we're just strictly trying to combo with Gyruda, which means that if you are playing any 1 toughness creatures, that is a non-bow, so ideally you want to get around that if possible. And Dimir Houseguard is the first sack outlet of an even mana value that has a toughness high enough that it survives Heartless Summoning. But maybe testing will show that Dimir Houseguard isn't the best one and you should just be playing Ashnod's Altar or Viscera Seer or some other sack outlet. But anyways, that is the Gyruda deck. So once again, just to reiterate, you are trying to get Gyruda down as fast as possible and combo it with either Mortuary plus a sack outlet, or just try to chain clones together using anything that causes creatures to come back with an Undying type effect or doubling up on the triggers in order to chain the clones together more easily off of the top 8 cards until you mill out all of your opponents, and then you just pass the turn and allow players to draw from an empty library to lose the game. Or alternatively, you can win with the Oracle Consult combo. And that is Gyruda.